Welcome, dear readers. Step into a night where every breath freezes mid-air, where every heartbeat echoes like a distant drum inside a storm that wants to swallow the world. The story begins on a rural highway that barely appears on any map, a ribbon of cracked asphalt stretching through endless white fields, where the snow falls like torn pieces of silence. And on this night, as darkness coils over the land, a yellow school bus, paint peeling, headlights dimming, vanishes from all radar as though the storm itself has swallowed it whole. Inside the bus are 19 children, some half asleep, some humming songs to stay brave, and one little girl clutching a handmade paper star she refuses to let go of because her mother folded it for her before she left home that morning. But no one knows what terror awaits them as the bus driver loses control when a shadowy figure appears in the middle of the road. What looks like a stranded traveler turns out to be a masked man whose boots crunch across the snow with a strange carefulness, and before the driver can blink, the man leaps onto the steps, shoves a pistol into the air, and orders everyone silent. The kids scream, but the storm swallows their voices. Minutes later, the bus skids across black ice, slams into a broken barrier, and hangs halfway off a collapsed bridge like a trembling heartbeat above a roaring, ice-filled river. Police try to reach them, ambulances attempt to push through, but the blizzard pushes back harder. Visibility drops to zero, roads close, radios crackle dead. And that's when someone makes a call not to official rescue teams, but to the Steel Angels, a biker club unlike any other, forged not in rebellion but in purpose, long-distance saviors with engines that slice through storms, leather jackets patched with memories of every life they've saved. Their leader, a battle-scarred rider named Rafe Hawk Harrington, hears the plea at 9:17 p.m., and even though the weather reports scream, "Impossible," he simply mutters, "Kids are out there. That means we ride," before kicking his steel-gray motorcycle to life. The Angels, 5 riders, engines roaring like thunder, burn through snowdrifts, sliding across black ice with terrifying precision, each mile heavier than the last because the storm feels strangely unnatural, as if someone wants to keep everyone away. Hawk senses something wrong, something planned. A school bus doesn't simply disappear. A bridge doesn't conveniently collapse unless someone wanted it to. And when they finally reach the bridge, its spine broken, cables swinging like dead vines, they see the yellow bus hanging by a thread, windows fogged with the breath of terrified children. But there's something else. The silhouette of a man standing inside the bus with a cracked white mask covering his face, the barrel of his gun glinting whenever lightning flashes above. The Angels freeze for half a second. This isn't a crash. It's a hostage situation staged in the middle of a death trap. Hawk steps to the edge of the bridge, wind slashing against his face, shouting through the storm for the kids to stay calm. The masked man doesn't reply. He only tilts his head in a slow, eerie manner, like he's studying Hawk, recognizing him. And then Hawk feels it, a shock of memory he can't place, a ghost of a face behind that mask. "This wasn't an accident," Hawk whispers, his breath a cloud that vanishes instantly. "Someone planned this. Someone who knew we'd be the only ones who could get here." One of the children presses her small face against the window, tears streaming down her cheeks, making tiny clear lines against the fog. Hawk's heart twists because she reminds him of his own sister who died in a winter storm long ago, a memory that still claws at his chest. "We're going to get you out," he promises, though the bridge groans beneath them like a wounded beast ready to collapse. The masked man suddenly drags a frightened boy to the front and screams through the shattered windshield for the Angels to step back or he'll throw the boy into the river. Hawk feels fury rise, but he forces calm, because rage saves no one tonight. Another Angel, a woman named Cass Blizzard, whispers that the masked man's boots are military grade, his stance trained, his voice too steady for a random kidnapper. This is professional, planned, orchestrated. But why children? Why a collapsing bridge? Why lure the Steel Angels? And then Hawk notices something chilling. Explosives wired to the underside of the bus, wires snaking toward a detonator in the masked man's trembling hand. The storm howls louder, as if nature itself is terrified of what's about to happen. Hawk steps forward, risking everything, shouting, "If you want me, I'm right here. Let the kids go." But the masked man laughs, a low, broken laugh, and says, You don't even remember me, but I remember you. The bus tilts an inch downward, kids scream, steel cables snap like gunshots, and in that moment Hawk realizes this is personal. Someone from his past has come roaring back in the coldest night of the year, and the angels have only minutes before the entire bridge drops into the river. The storm wasn't just snow anymore. It was a living wall of white, howling around the broken bridge, clawing at the steel angels like it wanted them gone, and for a moment even Hawk wondered if the night itself had turned against them. Every heartbeat on that icy bridge was deafening. Inside the bus, the children pressed against one another, shivering not just from cold but from terror, their small hands clasping imaginary shields or holding tight to the friend beside them. The masked man paced like a predator, 1 foot on the edge of the bus, his silhouette trembling against the weak glow of the bus lights. "Time's running out," he hissed, and Hawk knew it wasn't just a threat, it was literal. That bridge would give way in minutes. Hawk clenched his fists, the leather of his gloves creaking, and spoke into the storm, voice firm but careful. "You've lost your leverage. Let the kids go. Walk away, and you survive this night." The masked man's head jerked slowly, a mocking tilt, and he whispered, "You think I came here for survival?" Hawk froze. That voice, beneath the mask, beneath the storm. It was someone he should have recognized, someone who had vanished from his life years ago, the brother of a man Hawk had trusted with his life, the brother who had been presumed dead after a bitter betrayal during a rescue mission that had gone horribly wrong. Memories struck Hawk like ice against bone. Laughter turned to screams, trust turned to ash, and now the storm had brought that past back to this deadly bridge. Cass, sensing Hawk's hesitation, shouted over the wind, "Focus! The kids are slipping into panic. We don't have time for ghosts." The bus tilted further as a gust ripped across it, and Hawk's stomach dropped. He could see the terrified little girl with the paper star, clutching it as though it were a lifeline, as though it alone could hold her in this nightmare. Hawk felt a surge of anger mixed with heartbreak. This was more than rescue. It was redemption. One wrong move, and all of them, all 19 children, would vanish into the icy river below. The masked man suddenly lunged toward the back of the bus, dragging a child along, and Hawk's eyes locked on him. This time, there was no hesitation. With the precision of someone who had lived his life balancing on the edge of death, Hawk launched himself onto the broken bridge, sliding along the steel cables, his heart pounding like a war drum, shouting, "No!" The angels followed, sliding into position, engines roaring in defiance, their presence a shield against the storm and the fear threatening to consume the children. Hawk reached the bus just as the masked man raised his weapon. Time slowed. The wind, the screaming kids, the snowflakes, all faded into a single heartbeat. Hawk grabbed the man's arm, twisted, and they both teetered dangerously on the edge. Sparks flew as steel met steel. Cass yelled instructions to the kids, turning fear into frantic courage. "Climb. Hold on. You're not alone." Each child, trembling, followed the voice of Blizzard, who was coaxing them over the icy cables, their fingers raw and bloody, their minds screaming for warmth, for safety, for home. And in that heart-stopping moment, Hawk saw it, the flicker of doubt in the masked man's eyes, the flash of recognition that this fight was no longer just physical. It was the battle of years of betrayal, of guilt, of vengeance long festering in the frozen shadows. Hawk's voice cracked, raw with emotion, cutting through the storm. "You're not him. You don't have to do this. Let them live. Let them live." The words struck harder than any punch, heavier than any storm. The masked man hesitated. The snow fell heavier, almost as if holding its breath. One by one, the children climbed to safety, guided by the angel's iron hands and unwavering courage. Hawk's heart shattered and soared at the same time. Each child that made it across was a reminder of why he rode through storms, why he risked everything, why he never gave up. And then, the bridge groaned louder than ever, steel screaming under the weight of betrayal and ice. Hawk lunged again, this time catching the masked man just as the final cable snapped. They both fell, but Hawk's strength and resolve held. The man was dangling, face inches from the rushing river, the mask half cracked, revealing eyes that were not just angry but human, broken, lost. Hawk whispered, "It's over, it's not too late." And something in those eyes, the first glimmer of fear, of regret, told Hawk that the storm's rage, the night's terror, had met its match in courage, in humanity, in love for those children. The storm began to ease, though the wind still tore across the broken bridge, a reminder of how close they had all come to losing everything. Hawk's hands trembled as he held the masked man suspended above the icy river, and in those moments he saw the full weight of what had driven him here. Betrayal, anger, a need for revenge, and above all, a lifetime of regrets. The masked man's mask slipped completely, revealing a face Hawk recognized instantly. Familiar, haunted, and utterly human. For a moment, the storm felt irrelevant, the world narrowing to just the two of them and the children who were finally safe on the other side. Hawk's voice was low, cracked, raw with years of pain and emotion. "It doesn't have to end like this. Let go of the hate. Let go of me." The man's fingers trembled on the icy steel, and for a heartbeat, it seemed like he might. One of the angels, Blizzard, shouted from the safe side, "Hawk, we've got the kids. Come back. He's yours to handle." Hawk exhaled sharply, his gloves slick with ice and blood, and in a sudden decisive motion, he pulled the masked man to safety. The man collapsed beside him, shivering, exhausted, not just from the cold but from the emotional weight he had carried for years. Hawk didn't speak. He didn't need to. The children, 19 small faces pale with snow and tears, ran to the angels, hugging them, clinging as if never to let go again. Tears streamed down Hawk's face as he watched each child reunite with hope, with life, with safety. The little girl with the paper star held it high and ran to Hawk, whispering, "You saved us." That single phrase, uttered through trembling lips, shattered Hawk's remaining defenses, and he hugged her tight, feeling every ounce of fear, every beat of hope, every pulse of relief. The masked man, once a looming shadow of vengeance, now sat on the snow, silent, staring at the children's laughter. Hawk knew that beneath the anger, beneath the betrayal, there had been a man who had lost his way, but tonight had found a thread of redemption. Emergency teams finally arrived as the storm cleared, and the children were escorted safely to waiting ambulances, their families arriving, faces pale with fear but exploding with gratitude. Hawk and the angels watched from the broken bridge, engines humming quietly, a moment of peace after the chaos. The masked man was taken into custody, his story to be told in courts, his past revealed, but tonight it didn't matter. Tonight was about life, about survival, about the fragile beauty of hope. Hawk knelt in the snow, eyes closed, whispering a prayer for the lost, for the saved, for every life that had been touched by this night. Blizzard placed a hand on his shoulder, a silent acknowledgement of courage, of humanity, of the bonds that had held them through impossible moments. As the sun began to rise over the white horizon, painting the world in soft gold and pink, Hawk felt a sense of closure he had never known. The storm had passed, the children were safe, and even in the face of betrayal, the human heart could choose compassion, redemption, and love over hate. And so, dear readers, as you close this story, remember that storms may rage, bridges may break, and darkness may loom. But courage, compassion, and the willingness to risk everything for the innocent can light even the coldest night. Keep your hearts brave, your hands steady, and your hope alive. Best wishes to you, and may you always find your way through every storm life throws at you.